Hello folks, I hope you're having a great day today. Today I want to take a look at the next of this H.G. Wells short story collection. This is a collection of every short story he ever published, no matter what genre it's in. It has a number of horror, fantasy, adventure, and stories that are in various genres. Today I want to take a look at one of his most popular short stories of all time, according to fans, which is The Truth About Pyecraft, which we'll be looking at here momentarily. It's actually the fourth to last short story in this collection. Now, a quick caveat and aside about this collection. I have linked you to this collection in the past, and I'll do so again too. But one short story is in here twice. It's weird. It's in here under its original title, and then it's also, which was published at, and its original title was The Moonlight, The Moonlight Fable. And then it was later reprinted as The Beautiful Suit. So it's in here both under the Moonlight Fable name and The Beautiful Suit. It's the exact same story. It's weird that it's in here twice. I don't know why you would do that. I mean, it's only a 4-page story. It's not, but it's weird going into it. If you're like, that's weird. Just a quick little caveat about this collection. That they, for some reason, they published. There's no change in the story from the first title that it was published under to the second title that it was published under. So whether you're looking at it under a Moonlight Fable or under The Beautiful Suit, it's in here twice. Anyway, so we're taking a look at The Truth About Pyecraft. Now, I did some research about The Truth About Pyecraft prior to, and this collection online and some of the short stories of H.G. Wells. And you will see that people who have enjoyed H.G. Wells consider Pyecraft to be one of his strongest, most well-written short story. In fact, I remember reviews of this collection itself saying, hey, as long as it's got Pyecraft, it's fine. Or, people saying some of the short stories are a little less uneven than others. You can go online and see just how much love people have for Pyecraft. Pyecraft is a very different style of short story. It's very experimental for Wells. Wells was typically kind of this heady, scientific science guy who approaches his stories from this scientific, intellectual, erudite angle. He'll oftentimes come to it after the short stories or the novel is over with this historical third person narrative by somebody who was not involved in the story, who will be saying or not the main point of view character, and will be saying things like, this was crazy, I don't understand why we were thinking this, we were idiots, to think ourselves safe, to think of ourselves as secure, like the War of the Worlds or Sea Raiders, the short story I just reviewed for you recently. So there are a number of these short sort of stories that are out there that I think are really interesting that he has, and this one is very different for him. It's basically a comedy story where he's taken the subject seriously. What's happening is really intentionally downright funny. Basically, the key point of the story is that there's this club, and then our point of view character works at this club. And there is this tremendously fat guy named Pyecraft who is incredibly gregarious. He goes about from table to table, people to people, group to group, and very sort of socially, but it has some darker undertones to him, according to our point of view character. And our point of view character is going to prove it. Because Pyecraft keeps annoying him with his, hey, you told me, I swore you to secrecy, but he keeps asking him about the secrecy. He feels like he's being accused by the guy, so he's going to tell us what he was trying to keep secret all along. We're going to find out that Pyecraft really cares about his weight. He really wants to reduce his weight. He's really sort of embarrassed and self-conscious about it. It doesn't stop him from eating more, and so he'll eat multiple meals while he's at the club, and you'll see him do that. But again, our main character, point of view character, who works for the club, one of his great grandmothers, our point of view character, not Pyecraft, is from India. She's a grandmother from India, and so he has a part of that Indian sort of blood in him. That heritage, he has that understanding of that sort of more sort of natural, primitive aspect from her, and from the knowledge that she passed down to the family. So what's going to end up happening, Pyecraft has been trying to lose weight with a number of various schemes, none of which have worked. He has heard about the fact that his grandmother had this recipe for this magic elixir or brew that should reduce weight. He warns Pyecraft off a few times. Pyecraft, of course, won't be warned off, and so he agrees to it as long as Pyecraft stops whining to him about his weight. He'll be like, sure, but if you do it, you know, you're doing it on yourself. I'm not telling you to do it. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't trust it. So Pyecraft sets out, tries to accumulate the various materials, ingredients in order to take this sort of elixir from India, from this guy's grandmother, in order to find out what's happening and to lose his weight. Now I'm going to stop the review there. Well, the synopsis there. He'll lose his weight in a very interesting way. Some stuff will happen, and it's really funny. But anyway, and in fact, I think it might. I wonder if it inspires Mary Poppins. If there's this scene, I think may inspire a scene of Mary Poppins. But anyway, I'll leave it at that and link you to it below. But it's a very funny story, and Wells's attempt to have a much more hilarious and interesting story is one that I smiled at it and I laughed in one place. It was a good attempt. When doing some research on the story, I find that he was actually not happy with some people that he was encountering in real life, and so this was an attempt for him to excoriate them, just like the point of view person is trying to excoriate Pyecraft in the story. So there is a sort of truth of the narrative to it, obviously, where it goes and the magic stuff, and was not at no point in time is it ever called a magic elixir. It's just called more like the medicine of the East has truths to it that the Western medicine doesn't have, stuff like that. That's what it's really called. But when you start to kind of unpack the ingredients that are in this, here he's not assembling it. He hands the recipe to Pyecraft. Pyecraft does it, and then you find out the results. So it's not like you're spending half the story him chasing down and making the potion, or elixir, or filter, whatever you want to call it, a tincture, whatever. So it's not like so. I use the word magic potion potentially pejoratively. That may not necessarily have been what Wells had meant, or how it's actually taken, but you get the idea. They're putting together a magic potion of ingredients that include things like poison from a snake, and some other things like that they're putting together in order to help this guy lose weight, because he hasn't found anything else that's working, and he certainly isn't the kind of guy who seems to be willing to take a diet, to go on some exercise and so forth. So anyway, that's Pyecraft for you, and the truth about Pyecraft for you. Again, it's a very different style of writing. Fans love it. It's for a lot of them this is their the most valuable short story that they think he wrote, the best one that he thought he wrote, where he was kind of hitting all the narrative stops. And I can see where they're coming from. It's not my favorite short story of his, but I can see where they're coming from on it. My favorite short story is probably The Stolen Basilisk. But I get it. I get what they're doing, and I get what Wells is doing, and I get why Wells fans really do like it, because it's an experiment in a different style of writing that we just don't see Wells normally try to do, and I think he succeeds with it very, very marvelously. So there you are. There's the truth about Pyecraft. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Have you read it? I'll link you to it down below so you can take a look at it. I'll link you both to the collection that I have, as well as to one online, because things that are this old are definitely not something you have to pay for unless you want to. It'll be free in places like Project Gutenberg. So I'll link you to those. In case you don't have an actual physical copy in front of you to read like I do. It's fine, not a problem at all. But anyway, if you watch this video and you enjoyed it, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. There's going to be so many more of these sort of unpack classics that I like to unpack in fantasy, science fiction, and horror that go back to the 1800s to last 20, 30 years, that I think that either you have missed or forgotten about, just these forgotten classics, or ones, writers, classics that you may have heard about but never just had the chance to go out there and actually read. And so you'll see a lot of those sorts of things, like Dying Earth by Jack Vance in fantasy, for example, is one such thing that I like to really give to you. Even though it's a classic you've heard about fantasy and magic, but most fantasy readers today probably haven't read Jack Vance's Dying Earth, even though it would take them like maybe 3 hours to read the entire initial novel from the 50s. So that's kind of the sort of thing. And an H.G. Wells story, Truth About Pyecraft, is definitely something that I think a lot of people, you might have heard of Wells, but have you heard of the story? Have you read it? Again, I think this is a good example of where this channel likes to play. And finally, hey, if you watch this video all the way to the end, I just want to pause for a moment and just take a second to thank you. Taking some time out of your day. We all have so many things happening, such busy days, lives, and things that are happening, and being pulled in so many directions at once. So the fact that you spent this time with me, that's very humbling, and I appreciate that. So thanks again, and have a good one.